presidential debates, Romney talked about the auto bailouts, and his quick response was, no, I wouldn't have bailed out the auto companies. Well, how about the answer that there is a formula for restructuring? It's bankruptcy. General Motors would have entered bankruptcy. They would have emerged as the true car company of the 21st century. Whether that was 20 new car companies emerging from that process, but that's the answer that he should have explained it a little bit in lieu of, gee, all those jobs are going to go away. You know, some of those jobs might have gone away, but the jobs that would have resulted would have been real, as opposed to, arguably, the government pumping up a dinosaur that might not ultimately survive. Romney also said, I love firing people. As I said earlier, I hate firing people. Anybody who says they love firing people, there's something wrong with them. And then Obama, I would have just pointed this out over and over and over again. Nothing that Obama says do I disagree with. It's just that the words don't match up with the actions at all. They just absolutely don't match up. Speaking with a broad brushstroke, I am fiscally responsible, I am socially accepting. Now, I use the term accepting, not tolerant, because really, I don't give a crap on how you live your life, as long as your life doesn't adversely affect mine. And I think that that ends up to be a pretty normal way of life. The country faces a lot of issues, and I think it's important to understand that we're not a democracy. You know, we democratically elect our officials, but we're a republic. We're a constitutional republic. We're a country that's governed by law, and the law is the Constitution of the United States. So everything needs to fall back on the Constitution, and if we don't like the Constitution, then that's a process of amending the Constitution. But let's start off with some of the issues of the day. Number one is taxes. I advocate eliminating corporate tax, eliminating income tax, abolishing the IRS, and replacing all of it with one federal consumption tax. Now, economists that I talk with, the free market economists that I talk with, say that, you know, this is really a good idea. This is the best reform. This is the best of the worst, if you will, when it comes to taxes, but this is what we need to do. Now, I'm embracing the fair tax simply from the standpoint of this is a terrific starting point, and it would be great to have a national debate and discussion over how to best implement one federal consumption tax. But imagine not having to deal with the IRS. No IRS, no income tax, no corporate tax. Obama argues, let's drop the corporate tax to 33%. Romney says, let's drop it to 28%. Millions of jobs will get created. Well, what if it's zero? What if corporate tax is zero? Tens of millions of jobs will get created in the United States. Why would you establish a business anywhere on the planet other than the United States, given a zero corporate tax rate environment? Now, the fair tax is pegged to be revenue neutral, so government still needs to be cut by 30% to balance the federal budget. But the fair tax, 28% tax, consumption tax, sales tax on goods and services, new goods and services. And before you fall off your chair and think, oh man, you mean I'm going to pay 28% more for everything that I buy? Well, actually, there's a notion that it ends up being cost neutral. And if I could use as an example a can of Coke. A can of Coke that currently sells for $1 contains 28% embedded, non-transparent federal tax. That's corporate tax that Coca-Cola has to pay. That's Social Security match, Medicare, unemployment. All of those would come out of the proceeds of the fair tax. So no longer would there be any more deductions from your payroll check. Social Security, Medicare, unemployment coming out of the proceeds of the fair tax. So back to the can of Coke. The can of Coke would end up selling for 79 cents. Coke would be able to make the same amount of profit, 79 cents, apply a 28% consumption tax, still cost you and I $1, but now we've paid the tax. And if you think about that a while, actually it makes some sense. And then immigration, you know, when you talk about immigration and the fact that people that come over into this country don't pay tax, nobody's going to be able to avoid paying one federal consumption tax. I'd ask you to check it out, fairtax.org, check it out. It's a great starting point to have a debate and a discussion over how to best implement a federal consumption tax in lieu of income tax, corporate tax. No more IRS. Education, a gigantic issue in this country. And really, it starts and ends with education. The better we're educated, the better lives we all have, the better the prospects are in our lives. I would just suggest that the best thing that the federal government could do when it comes to education is to get out of the education business completely, abolish the Federal Department of Education. And very quickly, the Federal Department of Education gives each state 11 cents out of every school dollar that every state spends. But it comes with 16 cents worth of strings attached. The federal government says, look, we're going to give you 11 cents here, but you have to do A, B, C, D, and E. Well, to do A, B, C, D, and E costs you 16 cents. So what we don't recognize is that it's really a negative to take federal money. They mandate what you have to do, yet they don't give you enough money to be able to accomplish that. If they just got out of the educational business and left education to the states, 50 laboratories of innovation and best practice, I think that's exactly what you would have. I think you'd have some fabulous success that would get emulated. I also think you'd have some horrible failure that would get avoided. But the notion of one size fits all, the federal government has all the answers, I reject that. As governor of New Mexico, I would have been more outspoken than any governor in the country regarding school choice. I really believe that bringing competition to public education is something really exciting, that we would have tremendous innovation. Why do we even have bricks and mortar when it comes to education? The Khan Academy, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Khan Academy. You can get an education, kindergarten through a doctoral degree in any subject for free. Well, there are programs throughout the country that have teachers in conjunction with the Khan Academy monitoring students and their progress and getting them over the humps. And anyway, this is the model of the future, but you'll never see this, you'll never see any of this innovation occur if the federal government is driving it from the top down. Guns is front and center right now. As a result of Aurora, Colorado, I made a pledge to myself, and that was that I was going to get my concealed carry permit in New Mexico, something that I was able to sign into law. The notion that I might bring something, this kind of tragedy, maybe to an end or lessens this kind of tragedy to some degree. When I was governor of New Mexico and Columbine happened, I was asked, well, what kind of legislation do you pass to prevent this from happening? Well, nobody wants to hear what I'm about to say, okay? And I'm not proposing this legislation either. But if you want to talk about something concrete that would actually lessen a tragedy like Columbine or potentially even prevent it, you would have a requirement that teachers would have to have guns in their desk. I mean, that is a way to lessen, that is a concrete way to make this happen. I'm under the belief that if you outlaw guns, outlaws are going to end up with guns. That's my fundamental belief. How would it work if you had a president of the United States that wanted to veto legislation, that came at every piece of legislation from the standpoint of vetoing it? Well, I would have vetoed Homeland Security. I would have never established the Department of Homeland Security. I spent all my time after 9/11 as governor of New Mexico saying no to all these security initiatives that would have just cost a whole lot of money, a whole lot of time, and not made any difference in anybody's life. TSA, I would have, so vetoing Homeland Security, there would have never been a TSA. I would have left airport security to the airlines, to the airports, to municipalities, to the states. Look, imagine an airline advertising, hey, we're the safest airline. We require you to go